stuff that fell through the cracks, some interesting stories around the NHL, and where the Sharks are at after 3 weeks. Welcome to the Pucknologists. So welcome into episode 77 now of the Pucknologists here on Tealtown, USA. I'm your host, AJ_Strong on the Twitter machine, and with me, the one and only hockey jerk making your debut for this season?
Debut, return, usurpance, we can call it anything. But here I am, rock you like a hurricane. So it's time to get going, and I'm excited.
All right. Well, do us a favor, as always. Follow us on whatever podcatcher you're listening to us on. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube and find everything at tealtownusa.com. That's pretty much where it all lives, right? So let's just get into a few odds and ends that we actually were supposed to cover for 75 or 76. And for some reason, they fell through the cracks. And we dug into the crack and pulled it out. So,
did Evgeny Kuznetsov help you?
Here we go already. So, a couple of things. The Sharks released a new marketing campaign this season called #TealTogether. If you go back and look at Tealtown USA's Instagram feed from last May, you're going to go, sounds familiar. All right. Just saying, Just saying. Looks strangely familiar, but it's all right.
And on that same note, I think it's funny that last season during the playoffs they do the Sharks tattoos and they're marketed under, it was Sharks for life, literally. And then we fast forward 5 months and it's like, yeah, we're not really doing that anymore. So all these people got a tattoo for, Sharks for life, and
hey, free tattoos, not a bad thing if you can get them.
Yeah.
Hey, my walking terminology. In fact, I think I had it on a shirt at one point. It's if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3. Not a bad way to roll, buddy. Let's see what else happened. Evidently, now this is kind of interesting. Word from around the campfire was that Fanatics is feeling a little bit of heat from different sources. I'm not saying this is specific to the Sharks. I'm saying overall, I'm reading more and more that Fanatics is catching a little bit of heat from their partners. And from what I heard, there might have been some quality control people around the campfire at SAP checking, shall we say, their quality or lack thereof. But that said, I'm noticing more and more things now, and I've been to a couple games so far for this season. I'm noticing more one-off merch, like the Still Got It shirt from Jumbo. I believe there was another kind of one-off shirt that came out recently. I don't know what tagline they used for that, but all of these one-offs, not made by Fanatics. Just saying. Makes you go, Another thing of note over the offseason, KNBR, local sports talker on the AM side, has added an FM signal. For those of you who aren't local, there was a long time standing rock station called KFOG 104.5, I believe. But they were an FM station, in KNBR parent company, what is it, Cumulus, I think, came in and said, okay, well, we got competition on the FM side with 95.7, so we're going to put a signal on the FM side as well. Overall, they still plan to ignore the Sharks. That won't change. But other than that, now there's 2 sports stations you can listen to on FM that will both ignore the Sharks. So there's that.
You have options.
Yeah, and that's all we want, right? The Golden State Warriors, those basketball guys that used to play in Oakland, unveiled Chase Center in San Francisco, brand new building where they're going to be playing this season. The LA Kings have also unveiled plans to, or I guess they're going to be unveiling plans this month about renovations to the 20-year-old Staples Center. And not to be outdone, SAP Center replaced Nick the Greek with Opa. So If you're Greek and like Greek food, it's still there. You have that available to you. And finally, the Sharks celebrated the 25th anniversary of the tank 26 years after it opened. So there was that. All right, let's move on. Just all the little funny little quirks that always just make me giggle and laugh. And I go, it's all good. It's, it's just fun. You find the humor where you can. So around the NHL, let's see here. The Toronto Maple Leafs both scored and allowed a shorthanded goal in the first period of a game for the first time since 1985.
You hate to see it. I mean, it's Leafs have been having that problem all year, just giving up goals when they shouldn't.
Yeah. I find the little quirky things, and we'll get into it later, but like Kane making some history in the first period of a game this week. So, also, not to be outdone, the Vegas Golden Knights earlier today, there were some guys who talked about the amount of great confidence, just a lot of confidence in Oscar Dansk, who's going to be coming in to take over for Fleury. And as we're recording this, Oscar has let in 5 goals on 25 shots.
And that game is not far from over either.
No. And Dansk letting in 2 goals in less than a minute in the first part of the second period, and then 2 goals in less than a minute in the second half of the second period. So we could be looking at some franchise history for the Vegas Golden Knights because, their history is so established.
Well, Dansk obviously, he said earlier today that he looks up a lot to Marc-Andre Fleury and wanted to take some inspiration for him. So I think that's where you get the 2 quick ones early, 2 quick ones late. A little different from what Fleury did, but I think you see what he was going for there.
Yeah. Took it a little different way. Now, see, I'm not completely versed in what's going on. So I know Subban got injured or for something happened where he came out of a game versus Arizona earlier in the season. So is that still occurring, or are they giving Dansk the opportunity?
Yeah, he's still a little banged up. I know he had a lower body injury. It was against the Canucks. I don't know what kind of timeline there is for him. He has missed, I think it's been about a week that he's missed, maybe a little bit more.
It was against the Canucks? I thought it was the Yotes.
Did I say Canucks?
Yes.
I meant the Yotes. My mistake. My
the Desert
Yotes, of
Dogs,
course.
if you will. Hey, now.
I'll tell you this, though, speaking as somebody who watches this sport
religiously.
Yeah, I mean, you have a hard time convincing me that score would be any different if Subban was in net. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, the Flyers are feeling it. But it does go back to something I think we talked about during the Pacific Division previews. If Fleury goes down for any stretch, how significant is that to Vegas?
Oh, it's very significant, especially because, as loaded as their offense is, when you look top to bottom, that personnel, there have been a lot of instances like tonight where they've struggled to score. And if Marc-Andre Fleury goes down, Vegas is going to have a tough time, figuring that out. So
they're clearly a shootout team. Now this I'll say, top 9 probably the best in the West.
Oh, easily, 100%.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
and
defense,
they have. Yeah, and they have that's the thing. They have their spurts. Like maybe they'll go 5 games in a row where they get 5 goals every game, but then you'll see a lot of instances where they get shut out, or maybe they get 1 goal, 2 goals. So they definitely, as a unit, are hot and cold. But when they are hot, it's like you said, it's hot.
Yeah. No, I think we all appreciate it when the unit is hot. Don't like it when your unit's cold. But anyway,
of course not.
We move on. Are the Edmonton Oilers for real? I mean, dude, Draisaitl is just, he's killing it this season. Now, hashtag unsustainable, right? Small sample size, all of those things. But there's evidently some talk on the Twitter sphere that it's like, Draisaitl better than Austin Matthews. He's just,
I would agree with that sentiment only because I feel like Austin Matthews, now don't get me wrong, Austin Matthews is a hell of a goal scorer, but that's really all he brings to the table. And I'm saying this with the expectation that a lot of Toronto Leaf fans will be upset with me, and that's fine. It's not the first time it's happened, but But you look at Leon Draisaitl. I mean, he can rip the puck better than a lot of people. But he's a very underrated passer. He's a big kid too. He can hit, and we've seen you put him on Connor McDavid's wing or you put him at center, and he can really do it all. And obviously there it's the Connor McDavid show as it should be. But Leon Draisaitl is as good of a player, in that same conversation. Obviously, nobody's as good as McDavid, but I think he's definitely right up there. And, I know friend of the show, Gen X, and I have been going back and forth about him for a while. And I think, it's kind of hard. It's the same thing with Evgeny Malkin. It's hard being the second guy,
Dude, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. It was like, yeah, Crosby and Malkin as are, McDavid and Draisaitl, right?
Yeah, like if Leon Draisaitl is on any other team, he's the best player. He probably wears the C. He probably leads the team in scoring. But because he's McDavid's best man in a way, it's like, everybody sort of forgets. But no, that to answer your first question, are the Oilers real? You know what? I think they could be. I mean, they're getting, uncharacteristic goaltending from Mike Smith. We'll see if that continues.
Bounce back.
Yeah. And I've always, I don't want to say I've liked Mike Smith, but I definitely think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for. And so I think there's obviously something there. And for the first time in a while, too, it seems like the Oilers actually have depth beyond their top line. And, the defense has played much better as well. And everything just seems to be clicking for them. And whether or not they're playing above their league, it still remains to be seen. But I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of parlay this into a late season push.
Can we just address the elephant in the room? The key all circled around getting rid of Lucic.
Yeah, you know what? They should have never signed him. But,
right?
Everybody's got to make a mistake. Or if you're Peter Chiarelli, everybody's got to make multiple mistakes.
Well,
but we've all been there. I mean, if the stove's hot, put your hand on it. Who cares,
sure.
right?
Absolutely. So speaking about hot, and we're going to shift this into hot takey bakery coming at you. John Scott, former Sharks legend, NHL All-Star, MVP, by the way. John Scott, in his latest tweet for his podcast, put out, are the league's stars more vulnerable to getting hurt without enforcers there to protect them? What do you think? Now let me ask you this first. Do you think we need more guys like Ryan Reeves or, going back to a few years past, a Steve Downey? I mean, what else do you do in order to deter the Dustin Browns and Corey Perrys and that ilk of the NHL?
You draft and develop players who are faster than them, and then you skate around them and ignore them and score goals and win games.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's the whole thing is if you allow them, those players like Ryan Reeves, we saw it with Evander Kane in the playoffs last season when Kane allowed Reeves to get under his skin. Reeves was an impact. When Kane ignored Reeves, Reeves was not an impact. With his, 10 minutes of ice time a game, if that. So I just want to say my only thing about John Scott's comment on this is I just think it's funny that now granted, he was a quote unquote enforcer. And he's kind of, throwing it out there with the, look, you're going to see guys like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby and Leon Draisaitl and Logan Couture or whatever. You're going to see the stars of the league get injured more often because there's not an enforcer there, which I don't know that I take that in. Like, I don't know that I can believe that, but I just think it's funny that when John Scott was a Shark for one season, we were, as a fan base, sold on the idea of, well, we're bringing in John Scott to protect and look out for these younger guys that we're bringing up, whether it's a Hurdle or a Meyer or a LeBanc or whoever. And how many games was John Scott scratched?
Yeah, well,
over half the season. How are you protecting guys from the press box?
Well, and I have a problem with what he said too, because he's right. Players do get injured more often, but there's so many reasons that is the case. Like the game is faster.
The
And
game is faster. I still think it's a case of, even when there were enforcers, you still saw guys taking liberties with stars.
right, but I think it's I just think you don't see the whole story when you see John Scott's quote where he says, what did he say? Where he says, "Are stars more vulnerable to getting hurt?" Well, the increased pace of the game makes them more vulnerable because it's so. Speaking as somebody who does, ice skate and play hockey on a kind of regular basis, it's very easy to take a spill into the boards. Especially when you're going that fast. And like
We're playing the game on ice, people.
that too. And obviously I get what he's trying to say, but I think by saying it as generic as he did, he's not allowing the person he's talking to view the situation from all sides. Would an enforcer help? I mean, it like okay,
It's
if
see, this is my
Couture,
whole.
okay, but here's the thing:
Go ahead.
if Couture let's just say he snow showers the goalie, right? And then Ryan Reeves comes up and is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" and pops him in the side of the head. Is insert enforcer here going to jump off the bench and be like, "What are you doing to my captain?" No way.
Yeah.
Like unless John Scott's solution is to have an enforcer for every line, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
No, but
I just think it goes back to what I said, get players who are faster and who are better and just blow by them and don't even think about it. Because like you mentioned with Ryan Reeves and Evander Kane, and from experience inside and outside of hockey, if somebody's trying to piss you off and you ignore them, it pisses them off even more, but it makes them implode more than anything because they're not getting a rise out of you.
no, absolutely. So, yeah, I just go back to, that it's we've heard so much talk over the last few decades where it's trying to find players like an Eric Carlson, a Brent Burns, a Dan Boyle, people that can just offensive defensemen, a Chris Pronger, these guys that are just stud defensive guys, but are also offensive weapons, a Drew Doughty. So there are those kind of players, and they talk about that. Oh, they're generational. Well, they're so few and far between. Well, I think you can go a step further. That one of the things that is few and far between is the player who is a badass that you worry about, that he literally might come up and kick your ass, but he also has the ability to score points. And that was that was the name that I invoked earlier, was Steve Downey. Back when I was playing a lot of fantasy hockey, Steve Downey was just a go-to for me. You look at his stats over like 4 or 5 seasons, the dude's putting up 35, 40, 45 points, but he's also posting 180, 200, 220 penalty minutes. It was like, oh, that was secret weapons when I was drafting for fantasy hockey. It was like, oh man, not only is this guy going to give me some extra points, but he's going to secure my win every week in the penalty category. Yep. And you want to talk about trying to find, the rainbow unicorn of the NHL. There you go.
And that's why I like these these multifaceted players, guys like Timo Meyer and guys like Jamie Benn, right, and guys of that ilk who, like, they'll light you up for 30 goals, right, but they're gonna hit you, they're gonna knock you down, they're gonna grind you out. And I think that's kind of where the league has gone and is going, is instead of saying, okay, you're the guy who scores goals, you're the guy who's fast, you're the guy who does this and fights and does that, you're starting to see these multifaceted players more and more. And that's why I think, like I said, these guys like Jamie Benn and like Timo Meyer are, they're your more standard power forward, from the 90s and 2000s, but these guys can actually skate pretty well. And so I think more and more you're going to start seeing these guys. And I'm trying to think of another name, and even a guy like Matt Tkachuk, right? Like Matt Tkachuk put up almost 80 points last year, but he is the biggest freaking shit disturber in the league right now.
Dude, don't you just want to see Tkachuk and Doughty like go at it every game?
Every time the Kings and the Flames play, I have it circled on my calendar, and this is, I believe, the 4th season that we're seeing this feud play out on the ice, and I'm still for it.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know if you caught the most recent game, but they started a brawl, right? And then out of nowhere comes Mark Giordano, like off the top rope. Just yeah.
That was fantastic.
And I mean, obviously, like, like you don't want to see guys get hurt, obviously, but
No.
at the same time, that level of passion and intensity, like, it's good to see. It helps build new fans, and it makes for an exciting game to watch because, for every one of those kinds of games, there are 10 games where it's like, all right, 2-1, and I'm in bed by 9:30.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. For
so,
all of those games, there's Winnipeg, Nashville.
oh God.
You know?
Or like, there was one game I watched this past weekend that was just like so boring that like I literally stopped watching.
Like Minnesota, Florida.
Yeah, like
I'm right there with you.
yeah, it was tough sledding.
And now it's time for a new segment we're calling Foreseen. Guess what? Hockey Jerk came up with it's his hashtag. So we will go.
Guess who's also not winning in this year's Foreseen Face-Off?
Ooh,
Me.
Hey now. So we're gonna go with this episode's Foreseen. I don't know that we're gonna do this every episode, but we want to have at least one bit for every episode. And this week it's hashtag Foreseen. The question is, who is the first NHL coach to get the Spanish Archer elbow? So I have some odds for you if you'd like to hear them.
Oh, please.
Now, granted, you have to take into account that these odds are about 4 or 5 days old. So at the top of the list is Peter DeBoer. Because at the time he was like the only coach with 4 losses and no wins. But so you have Peter DeBoer. Now, also throw onto the fire with that, dude just signed a multi-year extension over this last summer from the reporting of Kevin Kurz on The Athletic. So, makes you wonder how hot that seat can really be. Now, let's also take that a step further. Another name that is part of this hot seat thing, Todd McClellan. The dude has been with the Kings for what, since July?
Yeah.
So, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it seems like the big money right now is on Bruce Boudreau from Minnesota, and at least that's kind of like in the western side of it. On the eastern side, I think most people would say, yeah, it's got to be John Hines in New Jersey.
So I'm glad that you brought up both of those names because those are the 2 names that I was going to say. You think about it from a Minnesota perspective. I mean, Bruce Boudreau probably is the first to get fired, but I don't really think it's of his own fault. The roster he was given is not really that exciting of a roster. And obviously Bill Guerin, their GM, has had to clean up a lot of messes, from the previous GM. And there's a really good article by Mike Russo on The Athletic about the previous GM. If you're interested, it's very good. So I think if he does get fired, it's not really his own fault. It's more a matter of
when did this podcast turn into a commercial for The Athletic? But anyway, go ahead.
I just think if he does get fired, it's not going to be by his own hand. Like he's doing, I truly think he's doing the best he can, and that roster is just not good enough now. Versus you look at the New Jersey Devils perspective. John Hines has been there for almost 5 years now. I believe this is his 5th season. And
there was a lot of talk about the Devils in the offseason when all the moves they had made.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is, it's the same kind of thing where obviously ultimately the players put on the skates, the coach doesn't wear the skates. So you kind of have to look to the players and see, okay, what can they do better? What can they do different? But at the same time, the the Devils, they have a pretty good roster, one of the better rosters they've had the last few years. And, Taylor Hall, former Hart Trophy winner, obviously scored a lot of points. I would argue he's underwhelming. You have, guys like Nikita Gusev, who I thought was going to tear the world up. He's had a slow start, same with PK Subban. And I mean, just everybody who you're expecting big things from, they've overwhelmed. Wayne Simmons has no goals in 8 games. So, I mean,
well, the other thing we need to call out too is they're 31 of 30, or 30th out of 31. I've already got Seattle in the league in my head. 30th out of 31 teams when it comes to goal differential. And
yeah. Well,
now granted they've won their last 2 games, but
just and from a goaltending perspective as well, they're between their two goalies, Mackenzie Blackwood and Corey Schneider, a combined 3.61 goals against average, which that's not ideal no matter where you play. And save percentage is as a goaltending tandem is a .881. So as much as their forwards are not scoring, their goalies aren't really doing them any favors either. Now Mackenzie Blackwood has been the better goalie, and I think he's taken or will take that starting job away from Corey Schneider. But I think with everything just going poorly and John Hines, I mean, we're 2.5 weeks into the season and the assistant GM is already on the bench.
Yeah. Well, and a couple other names that were listed in here, which I think are kind of funny, is Rick Tocchet in Arizona. Like,
I don't see that.
yeah, I don't see that either.
Like even like one that I look at too is like Jeff Blashill has been in Detroit for a long time, and Detroit has been pitiful, we'll say. But I think,
they were due after like the
Right.
25, 30 years of success.
Right, but I just think with Jeff Blashill in that kind of situation, like as bad as the team is, I think it's almost a situation where it's like, you're our guy, pull us out of this kind of thing. You know
Do
what I
you
mean?
think it's just like Detroit will just hire any coach whose last name starts with a B?
It's possible.
Bowman, Babcock, Blashill? No?
Well, and if you look at their bench, they're clearly trying to lead the league in coaches who have no hair.
Come on.
That's not even me trying to be funny. That's just a true 100% fact. There's a really good clip where
Wait a minute. Babcock's got a nice flow.
yeah, but he's not on that bench anymore.
Well, I mean, but when he was. All right. Anyway.
But,
so.
but like, if there's a really good clip where, like, if you look, there's a interview reporter like goes up to one of their assistant coaches who's bald and is like, "Oh, hey, Coach Blashill," and he's like, "Oh, you're looking for the other bald guy."
Oh, jeez. All right. So I'm going to throw a couple more names out at you. DJ Smith in Ottawa. I mean, you could have 3 Scotty Bowmans on that bench. I don't think things are getting much better in Ottawa anytime soon. Jim Montgomery in Dallas. They've gotten off to a slow start. Maybe Pavelski and Perry haven't turned out the way that they'd hoped. From what I'm hearing, Ben Bishop not lighting the world on fire in net right now. And another one that was on the list, Travis Green in Vancouver. And I feel like he's in the same boat as Tocchet, where it's like, I think we're talking about this a little too early right now. But I'll give you, I mean, who's your top 3? I'm going, Hines, Boudreau, and honestly, I'm trying to think of a third one that I would lump in there. I'm looking at my list, and there's even been a little talk about Tortorella, and I'm like, he's on the hot seat all the time. He's never been on a cool seat except for 2004 in Tampa. That's the only time his seat has been cold.
Yeah, and I think, like, definitely I agree with you. John Hines and Bruce Boudreau, obviously, those are the two obvious candidates, both with what the team's done on the ice and
but you
in
want
past years and this
foreseen
year.
points,
Right?
So you have to find the one that no one's talking about.
Find the third one. I agree with you. It's really tough because a lot of these coaches are either like they're in a good spot, or it's a situation like I mentioned with Jeff Blashill where like it's not going well, but you still have to stay the course with your guy, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, there's just a couple of guys. Well, for me, it's like it's way too early to talk about Tocchet. It's too early to talk about Travis Green. It's insanely too early to talk about Todd McClellan, especially when you look at what he's been given.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here's Kopitar, here's Doughty, and that's it. Have fun.
Yeah.
I can't, and T-Mac signed like a 5-year, $5 million, or 5 years, $5 million per.
Yeah.
It's you're not dumping either way. I think we've gone on too far, but okay, who okay, here, I'll make it easier for you. Who dumps the coach first, the East or the Western Conference?
Oh, the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. I think we're both leaning towards
John Hines.
Yeah, John Hines. Sorry, buddy.
Well, if you
insert
get fired,
AOL sound here. Goodbye.
if you get fired, you're more than welcome to join the podcast.
Hey now. So speaking of which, let's get into some Sharks hockey after week 3. Over the last week, the Sharks go 2-1 with wins over Calgary and Carolina, including was it a natural hat trick or not versus by Evander Kane versus the Canes, and we'll get to that in a minute. Followed up with a loss to the Buffalo Sabres. Now, the victory over Calgary, great victory. We had some stuff that happened during that game we can get into a little bit later, but that was a solid victory. The Sharks come home after a victory in Chicago in Marlowe's first game. That was great. All right, Carolina. Evander Kane scores 3 goals in the first period. First time in franchise history, by the way, that's ever happened. However, there was a lot of back and forth as to whether Evander Kane's hat trick in the first period was a natural hat trick. Jerk, in your mind, in your definition, was it a natural hat trick?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna
Looking
have to
for a
take
yes or no right now, but go ahead.
Well, I am unsure because I because I
You
don't
asshole.
I don't know the order the goals were scored, but I think what I think you're alluding to is the fact
it was
Gambrell.
Kane, it was Kane, Hamilton, Kane.
Oh, then it's
and
not a natural hat trick.
The Gambrell thing has nothing to do with it.
It's not a natural hat trick then.
Okay, then. Thank you. See, now here is the, and that's the way I look at it as well, is that a natural hat trick is 3 goals by the same player uninterrupted by scoring from either team involved in the contest.
I would agree.
Okay, then. Evidently, there are multiple definitions. Well, and when I say multiple, I mean 2. But there are 2 definitions. It's essentially a natural hat trick, the definition that I just provided, or it's when a player scores 3 goals in 1 period. Evidently, that's like some other definition that is
What?
like, yeah, that's like the Urban Dictionary definition, I guess. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
telling you, man, look it up, Google it. I've seen 2 definitions of it.
These
Now,
damn millennials.
yes, the definition that we just invoked seems to be the all-encompassing, like, yeah, that's the one we all look at. But that either way,
correct one.
that's the one. That's why some people were unsure, as you say. So,
Well, yeah, of course. And you know what? I'll tell you this: if you don't agree with us, you're wrong.
that's all I'm saying.
And just a quick reminder as well: some tweets meant as joke. Just wanted to get that out there.
Only some.
Some.
So, after losing their first 4 contests, the Sharks go 3-1. What have you liked? What have you not liked? Like, let's talk. Let's touch on the positive first. We've seen Marlowe come back. We get Kane back. See, that's the other thing too, is they went 0-4. Well, what did they not have in those first 4 games as they've had in the last 4? Well, they've had Evander Kane for all 4 of their last 4. They've had Patrick Marleau for all 4 of their last 4. They've also, and I'm sure having those players back or re-signed or signed again, or however you want to refer to Patrick Marleau. But having that back, all of a sudden you look at a power play that went like 1 for 17 chances, all of a sudden is like 6 for their last 13. And on top of that, you put a penalty kill that has killed 14 of their last 14. So special teams are on fire right now, but so that's my positive right now. What are you looking at that you're going, okay, I like this. This is getting better. Like more of this.
The thing for me that I really like more than anything has been the penalty kill. You know, it's been good for a few years now, obviously, but I think with Bugner coming back, I think is obviously it's boosted it up even more. Their penalty kill right now, it's just a smidge under 93%, which is like
I believe
unreal. Because I
Scotch
because I believe I want to say, don't quote me on this, I want to say league average for a penalty kill is between 80 and 85, and the fact that the Sharks are at 93 is ridiculous. And they shut down Carolina statistically Carolina's power play doesn't look very good, but it's got a lot of really good personnel. They shut them down.
No, they're coming into that game. Their power play was looking pretty damn solid. I think they were top 3 or 4 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they shut that down. Buffalo has a really good power play this year. They shut that down, except for I believe 1 or 2 goals. So for me, no,
they kept Buffalo off the sheet when it came to power play.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
But I think penalty kill has been the best aspect of the team as a whole, just because that's where I found especially with the Vegas Golden Knights, those first two games, it was like Vegas went on the power play. And it's like, just give them a goal because it's going to go in. And now, and now like the penalty
Wow.
kill is totally dialed in. I believe it's number 2 in the league. Um,
The
so
Sharks right now, the PK is number 2.
I could be wrong. I think I may have read that somewhere. But that's like what I'm looking at from a team perspective.
You know what? No, hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but let me ask you a question though. When you give up a short-handed goal, that doesn't, because I've seen this question before, it doesn't impact your power play, like your statistically.
No,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
it should though.
And San Jose is number 2 in the league in penalty kill, 92.8%, just above Vancouver at 92.6, and just below Vegas at 94.3. So they're right there, second in the league in penalty killing.
Did someone say Vancouver? No, I'm kidding. That was for Puck.
But
Go ahead.
in terms of an individual effort, I mean, the easy answer is Logan Couture because he somehow has gotten even better than he was last year, and last year he was better than the year before. So it is proof that at 30 years old you can get better. But the one guy I'm really looking at is Barclay Goodrow. Like he's especially in the 4 losses to start the season, he was no doubt in my mind the best player on the ice. And, he proved that with the goals he was scoring and just hitting and being a smart player. And he's continued to parlay that even when the Sharks have been winning. And it's gotten him, a promotion to that line with Joe Thornton and Marcus Sorensen. And even, he had a quick cigarette with Thomas Hertl and Evander Kane on that line as well. So, he's probably been my, I guess, not most improved, but like the best player for me to watch. And I think this could be a good year for him. And the nice thing too is if he can put away, let's just say, speaking a little freely, being optimistic, if he can put away like 15 goals this year, the Sharks still have him under contract for sub $1 million next year. So, talk about cap management on the bottom side of the books. We're doing all right.
For Goody, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Goody's getting better. One of the, to kind of, excuse me, to kind of keep the positivity ball rolling a little bit. Melker Karlsson, this guy gets dumped on a lot. And you look at his numbers. He doesn't take the most face-offs, but you know what? He's got the best face-off winning percentage right now on the team. Now, granted, if he's only taking 3 a game while Hurdle's taking 12 and Couture's taking 11 and blah, blah. Yeah, okay. But the whole thing is he's not there for that. But when he is there, he's getting it done. And you look at the penalty kill that we just talked about being 14 for the last 14. Melker Karlsson is a big part of that, top guy on their penalty kill. So that's another guy that I don't think, you're, shall we say, I don't think those guys, both Goody and Karlsson, and, Goody has really stepped up. Let's be honest. His Johnson feels a lot bigger after Game 7 than it did before Game 7. You know what I mean? He's got that BDE going on. So I think with that, with both those guys, you got to for the money, they're getting it done. Are they only going to play, 8 to 10 minutes a night or whatever? Sure. And are they going to be seeing a lot of ice time when there's 7 minutes left and you're down a goal? No. But they're doing what you like. Are they making their money? Absolutely. In my mind, absolutely.
Yeah. And real quick, I don't know if you want to get into the negatives or not, but real quick, I just want to say
we're going to get negative, baby.
I just want to say I think Noah Gregor had a really good first NHL game, and I hope he gets to stay in the lineup on this road trip.
Yes, I would agree. I would like to see him see what he can do. That's obviously you're taken, however you want to say it. I've heard like 20 different pronunciations.
You're taken out of the lineup.
Yeah, you were taken out of the lineup because you aren't getting it. Yeah, but you're taken in Bergman. You had your shot. And so we move on, and we take a look at Gregor, who was doing really well. I think he had a goal and 2 assists in 3 games with the CUDA, and was looking good, leading the way there. But let's jump back for a hot second on Goodrow and Melker Karlsson. So with Goodrow, looking at the numbers here, 26 years old, making less than $1 million, 925K this year and next year before he's UFA.
It's beautiful cap management.
Oh, that is exquisite. Melker Karlsson, 29, making $2 million UFA after this year. Okay, that one I can see fans getting see, you look at what he's there for. Is he a little overpaid? Debatable. But he's insanely consistent. When was the last time Karlsson missed a game? You know? I mean, he's reliable.
More than anything, when's the last time you've ever watched a Sharks game going back the 5-6 seasons he's been on the team?
Exactly what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, when's the last time you've ever seen something and been like, "Ugh, I hate that Melker Karlsson did that."
Yeah, exactly. I knew exactly where you're going. Where you just sit there and go, "Oh, if Melker doesn't make that play, you know, yeah." When was the last time you did that? No, that is a fantastic point.
And you know, I think the Sharks were kind of high on him after his rookie year and the year he signed this extension as well. And I'll agree with you. The contract is not the best contract like ever, but he's a player that I would love to keep on this team past this year just for what he brings to the penalty kill alone.
Absolutely. No. Okay. So, all right, we're a little too hearts and candy and flowers and teddy bears and everything. So let's rip some people some new assholes. All right.
I already know where I'm going, so you can go first.
Goaltending. Now, look. Here's my thing. I gotta preface this before everybody like burns me in effigy on social media. Look, let me just say, like, has Jones? Because every time you say anything negative about a goaltender, you get half of Twitter. It's not all Jones's fault. All the guys in front of him. I'm not saying that isn't the case. So please, don't read into something that I'm not saying. Don't make assumptions because that just drives me insane. You have no idea, dude. Like how many times I'll post something on Twitter and I'll get like a couple responses and it's like it's almost as if they think I said something totally different than what I said. You know, like you don't know how many times I've had my like copy and paste response is I never said that. or, you know, or show me where I said that, you know, just the assumptions. Some people on Twitter just like learn to read, people. We talked about this in episode 75. Read, then read it again, read it one more time, then respond, and then make sure you're actually responding to something that was actually written on Twitter instead of making assumptions and taking it. Either way, I feel like I've gone on too long. Either way, goaltending. This is the reason why I say goaltending. And again, blame it on the guys in front of them. But there have been, so far, in just a few games that we've seen, the 8 games so far. Now, granted, Dell started one. Remember, Jones was yanked in Game 2 versus Vegas. I'm assuming we'll see Dell get at least one game. I don't know if it'll be between Montreal and Toronto since that's a back-to-back situation, but you would assume that Dell will get a look on this 5-game road trip that starts tomorrow or today, depending on when this podcast is posted. But you have to take into account that, yeah, there were a few goals that Jones should have had. Not blaming him for everything. But the fact of the matter is we're a year, you know, we're on to the next year, and we're still complaining, and this is not just me, but overarching, a lot of the same complaints that we had last year we're having this year, one of which is goaltending. Jones has had a couple of great games. Calgary and Carolina, really solid games. Very solid. I think you could even say that I think it was the Chicago game. Solid game. Even Nashville. But the thing of the matter is, no, wait a minute. Hold on. What game did Dell start?
Dell played against Chicago.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that's the thing I was being thrown off by. But either way, like over the last 3 starts, Dell, even versus Buffalo, this, you know, the Sharks just it seemed like they were behind the 8 ball from the beginning. It was like, you know, they gave up the goal. They got it back. Then they give up another one. They get it back. They give up another one. It just kept ping-ponging back and forth. I want to see Jones make that extra stop once in a while. Like he doesn't have to do it every game, but I would like to see him steal games. But that's the thing about Nabby. Even Niemi a couple times, although not as much. But there was a few times where Nabby outright stole games. There's a lot of games you can look at and say, you know what, the Sharks had no goddamn right to win this game if it's not for Nabby. And
Right.
I wish we could say that more often about Jones. So again, let's see this team. You can sit there and talk about the guys in front of him, but when you're looking at a team that sucks ass, like the LA Kings or the Ottawa Senators or whoever, and their goaltenders' save percentage is like at a 911 and Martin Jones is like at an 898, don't tell me it's all about the people in front of him, because there is a far better team playing in front of Jones. Okay? So that's my first, poop on the bed. You go ahead. I mean, that said, Martin Jones, good goalie, but he needs to, and I'm not the only one who says this.
No,
You know?
I think Martin Jones, I think he needs I think he needs a backup that's going to push him.
Yeah. Well, and that was also stipulated too not too long ago by somebody. It was just like, when he had Optimus Rhyme up in here really giving him a run for his money, that's when we saw some of Jones's best work. And since then, no.
Yeah. So the person that I'm gonna point out is Lukas Radil.
Ooh, not where I thought you were going, but okay.
So my advice to him is do something. Literally anything. Because this is how I look at it. So Lukas Radil, he's 6'4", which makes him the second tallest guy on the team,
Yeah,
just behind Brent Burns. And he skates very well for being 6'4". I will give him that. So why are you playing like you're 5'10"?
Yep.
Like the preseason game against the Calgary Flames, Lukas Radil had a tough first period, and then came back in the second and third. He was playing true to his size, and he was playing with Kane and Hurdle, and he was making things happen. Hurdle had a goal in that game, or maybe Kane did. One of those guys had a goal in that game, and Radil was a big part of it. He was using his size to his advantage, making space for those guys, and we've seen him literally everywhere in the lineup. He was with Couture, he was with Hurdle, he was on the fourth line, and no matter where he goes, he can't get it done, it's unfortunate, because I think he had a flash of having some skill last year. There was the very brief time where he was the real deal Lukas Radil, and now it's just like, I don't know, like I look at Noah Gregor, who came up, and I'm going to use this example again because I just so happen to be a fan of his and may or may not have a jersey coming. Noah Gregor came in, first NHL game, was using his speed, was getting open for his center, Gambrell, who, by the way, Gambrell has played outstanding. He was being open for his center. He was using speed. He was making things happen. And I just feel like Radil has been a passenger so far this season. And I hate to say that, because I do think he's a skilled player, but it's like, if you want to hold on to your roster spot, like, you got to be better than everybody else around you. And I just think, he's legitimately sick right now and can't play. But I think if he was totally healthy, I don't think he would be playing anyways.
Yeah, I think he was definitely a guy that I was looking to make some sort of an impact, or really make the coaches, give the coaches some tough decisions to make during training camp. And he was literally like one of the guys that you really didn't hear a lot about during training camp. So,
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a solid one. Let's move on to the defense now. Vlasic and Erik Karlsson both leading the team with a -9. Now, we know that for the most part, plus minus is a relatively useless stat, but it does give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on. I'm just going to say this. I'm tired of hearing excuses for Erik Karlsson. It's first off, it's well, he's new. He's got to get used to the system and blah blah blah. Okay, then it's oh, he's injured. I mean, obviously a valid excuse, but still another excuse. Now it's oh well, he's just become a parent. So there's I'm not saying that those things don't have an impact, but it just seems like it's like, okay, well, how long before we can stop using he's a new parent as the excuse and then move on to the next one? And I think one of the reasons why I'm a little upset with Erik Karlsson right now, as are a lot of other fans, is the fact that he's the highest paid defenseman in the NHL. If he was getting, $7.5, $8 million, similar deal as Brent Burns, maybe he's not catching the amount of shit that a lot of people are throwing his way. Fact of the matter is, highest paid NHL defenseman right now. And when you see him getting easily pushed off the puck, when you see him making ill-advised passes up the middle where there's literally no one there, just some of the things that you're seeing, and these are things that some people were talking about last season. Now, you can sit there and blame it on the groin or whatever it is. He was supposed to be solid, healthy coming into the season. Everything felt good. Played that last preseason game. Everything was good. Oh yeah, I'm the EK65 from back in the day when everybody loved me. And what have we seen so far? Now, granted, he's definitely been in on some plays. And when you're making $7.5 and $8 million and everything like that, oh, okay, hey, solid play, and maybe you're allowed to make some mistakes here and there. But when you're the highest paid defenseman in the league, of course the spotlight is going to be on you way harsher. So I just think with great, I'm going to paraphrase Spider-Man, with great money comes fans, wanting great output. And I don't think that right or wrong, and there's going to be a faction that say right, there's going to be a faction that say wrong. I'm just trying to put it out there that I think that's one of the reasons, or I should say the primary reason, why Erik Karlsson is catching a ton of shit right now, is that when you've got a contract that's fat, you are expected to produce at an insanely high rate. Maybe even, maybe it's God, I'm trying to find the correct word. Maybe the expectation is unwarranted, but it's going to happen when you're making that much money.
Yeah,
and it's again, let me just say this. Hold on, let me just say this. That's going to happen. Remember Mikhail Bodker, $4 million.
Do I remember Mikhail Bodker?
This is what I'm saying. $4 million a year for 4 years. And how much did we lay into this cat? And a lot of it was he wasn't producing. If he had just put up 15 goals for the first 2 seasons, I think all of us would have been like, well, hey, he's getting $4 million and blah blah blah. If he was getting $8 million, we would have roasted his ass. We would have flambéed him out on Autumn Street. Okay? You have to take into account the amount of money of the deal. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this Erik Karlsson stuff, it's very hard for me to quantify how I feel about it, because on one hand, you're absolutely right. You're making $11.5 million a season. You need to be able to take over a game and win a game by yourself, But at the same time, and again, I hate to make excuses, but I look at it from the perspective of he had groin surgery 5 months ago, and he says he's fine. And thing is though, I think
he said he was fine during the playoffs too. How'd that work out?
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think if he was like, oh, I'm not fine, I'm still sore, I think people are going to even be more worked up about it. And I think, because then it draws the question, why the hell are you playing then?
Yep.
So I think I do agree with you 100%. I think Erik Karlsson needs to do more based on his contract, based on how good of a player he is. But at the same time, I just think you have to give it time, because, I've never had groin surgery before, but I imagine, you can have surgery and you can recover, but that true comfort never comes back when you're
Oh,
fully recovered. It's why, same thing to kind of parallel it a little bit. Last year Andre Sekera tore his Achilles, and that's like surgery and recovery is like 6 to 12 months, and then getting comfortable in your own skin is another 6 months.
yep.
Now, I'm not saying that Eric Carlson, has until April to get ready. To get into game shape. I think it needs to be much sooner, but I still think I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt, considering the fact that he had his groin reconstructed.
Again, I think most people would if it wasn't for that insane contract.
Oh, for
And,
sure. And that's the thing. No matter what way you slice it, like I could sell you and get you to agree with me on one side of it, and then the other side is gonna make you forget everything I just told you.
yes. Oh,
There's too
absolutely.
many ways to slice that situation, which is why I think in general it needs more time to percolate.
Well, again, this will be it. But I think it's you look at that deal, and everybody, it just makes any mistake, it's magnified, times 1,000. So I think that's part of it. They'll look at 2 assists, and they'll go, oh, well, yeah, that's what he's expected to do. But then they see that one giveaway that leads to a game-winning goal for the opponent, and they go, oh, really? So they're going to destroy him in that regard. It's, I don't know. You look at those things, and I just feel like that's the way that fans are kind of looking at it. It's just because everything he's doing because of that contract is magnified, and the fact that Sharks fans will sit there and go, could have kept Nyquist. Now, I'm not saying keeping Pavelski was the right play or the wrong play, but could have kept these guys,
It
and because of that contract, they weren't able to do it.
it's so to kind of change the subject on you a little bit. It's funny that you brought up Nyquist because he actually just scored the OT winner on a penalty shot in Toronto.
I got to say, I'm a little pissed off that I don't have your undivided attention, but it's all right.
No, I heard everything you said, and I agree with you. I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I look at that, and in fact, if you're going to be really pissed off about anybody on the defense right now, hello, Mark-Edouard Vlasic.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
what has happened to this guy in the calendar year of 2019? Well, I shouldn't say that because he had a slow start last season, and it took him about half a season to find his game. Now, granted, he did have musical chair partners going on, but it seemed like once I don't know, the second half of the season he played well. And if you go back to the series versus Vegas, there were 3 games. Well, there's 2 games he didn't play in, one that he got injured very early in the game. The Sharks lost all 3 of those, but all 4 games that Vlasic played the full 60, they won all those games. So he was a key cog in the machine. But there is just, I don't know what is going on with Vlasic over the last, I don't know, calendar year, but dear Lord, man.
yeah, I've been one to defend Vlasic a lot during this time where he struggled, and I still think he's better than most defensemen in the NHL. And this is one where, like with Eric Carlson, I could point to 8 different things and be like, well, this is why, or this is why, or that's why. But with Vlasic, I really have no idea. He doesn't get injured, and when he does, it's not anywhere that affects his legs or his brain. So, like, I don't have a reason for you, and it's, I don't know.
But
I like to think that he's going to turn it around, and really though, if we're looking at like last year's slow start versus this year's slow start, this year he's definitely better.
yeah.
But I am just wondering like why he can't be 100% dialed in on day one.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how they deploy this, especially once Shimmick comes back, because obviously they've had Vlasic and Burns slotted together, Dylan and Carlson, and then of course Ferraro, and then whoever's name gets pulled out of a hat, whether it's Heed or Prout or whoever's not injured that day. But once Redeem comes back, you would think that they will slot Shimmick with Burns just because that produced so much success last season. That was like the combination to open the safe. But if that's going to happen, then that essentially again, we also saw a lot of chemistry between Dylan and Carlson. So Does that put Vlasic down to the third pair? Yeah, it kind of does, but then you got people that are going to look at the salary in his contract and go, why is this guy getting $7 million for the next 6 years playing third pair? You know,
Yeah, I think I know where you're coming from, and obviously the guys who are making the most money have to be the best players, but at the same time, regardless of salary, you have to play your best players.
well, then, no, and see, that's my whole thing is that I kind of like this. I can't wait for Shimmick to come back because I would love to see Shimmick and Burns, Carlson and Dillon, and then Vlasic and Ferraro. I think that would be a lot of fun, especially as aggressive as Ferraro can be. I think if you put Ferraro with a guy like Vlasic, who is the kind of, supposed to be that stay-at-home, shut-down, reliable guy, I think that could really free up Ferraro and maybe give him a little BDE for his confidence,
I just on a totally side note, I love what I've seen from Mario Ferraro
Oh, yeah.
so far, and
He's made a couple of rookie mistakes, which is what happens. The thing I love about this kid is I've also seen him a couple times where he's screwed up and then hustled back to cover his screw up.
and I made a note of that on Twitter in the game against Carolina as well, where whenever he makes a mistake, he knows how to make up for it. Whether it's, you brace into a guy or you take an extra stride, he knows what he needs to do. And unfortunately, when everybody's healthy, he is going to go back to the Barracuda, which sucks because he's played so well with the Sharks, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either because
How long do you realistically think he would be with the CUDA? Because and the reason why I say this is because I've been insanely unimpressed with Carrick and Prout. Again, small sample size, but
yeah, I mean Prout's only played one game.
Yeah, but I mean, even the course of like preseason and everything, it was like I was kind of like he was, playing against AHLers essentially, and he still looks out of place.
Right. I think. I mean. I don't want to. I would rather have
give me
Ferraro,
Heaton Middleton over Prout.
right. I would rather have Ferraro be the number one defenseman with the Barracuda than being like the healthy scratch for the Sharks. Like,
oh no, I definitely don't want. I just can't see him being a healthy scratch. When your options are okay, Shimmick, Burns, right? Carlson, Dillon, and then Vlasic, and then who are you slotting in over Ferraro? Is Heed better than Ferraro? I would say no. Middleton,
if you,
Prout?
I mean, Peter DeBoer likes guys with the correct handedness on that side. So looking at it from that, I have the same sentiment. But looking at it from that perspective, it would be Heed or it would be Dalton Prout. But I mean, here's my other thing though. It's like
Ferraro's lefty, Prout's righty.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is Vlasic is lefty, so you'd need a righty to play with him. Is what I'm saying. But now that said, like if Ferraro is comfortable playing on his offside and who DeBoer is fine with it, then I'm fine with it. Like if he's going to play, then by all means play him. And obviously, I don't think as good as Burns Shimmick was last year. I wouldn't necessarily say that they are married at the hip just yet because as much as Vlasic has struggled, I do like the Burns and Vlasic pairing. I think they work well together.
I am unsure.
It's a good problem to have, right? You have too many guys who can fill that role. So maybe it's a way for the Sharks to recoup an asset or I don't know, but time will tell once everybody's healthy. And I'm really struggling with the reality that we're going to lose Brendan Dillon because and you know what, how many times last year did I say it that he's our best defenseman and it's still true.
This year the only defenseman, I mean both him and Marlowe are the only ones that are plus right now. And again, plus minus, blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. Go talk to Chris JWS. But yeah, no, Dylan. Would I say he was our best defenseman? Possibly.
Emphasis on defense.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is that he's definitely been the most reliable. And yeah, I completely hear what you're saying. Where it's just like it's that whole idea of it. It's going to be real interesting to see where the Sharks are come deadline. If they're a solid 10, 12 points out of a playoff spot, and I'm talking wild card.
Yeah.
First off, two things. How can you not move him? Because You need something for for some from picks or prospects or something. How do you not move this guy for a piece for the future? It's and then the other thing being is because really, what money you're going to have to sign him to any extension? And the other thing being is like you're talking about a blue line that already has $27 million.
Well,
Right?
I think like I actually looked at this last night with Cap Friendly, and the salary cap's going to go up. That's a given. And but
But
even if
what are we
even
talking? What, 2 mil?
it's probably going to end up being 1 or 2 mil like it was last summer. But even if without that fact of the salary cap going up, like I'm I still think same thing. Like a lot of people say we had no cap space for Nyquist. We could have made that work.
I
I
think so.
think in the same respect, the Sharks can make a Dylan extension work. Now it'll be tough on the forward group, because the Sharks are going to end up with more cap space this summer than they had last summer by virtue of the Paul Martin buyout coming off the books and cap space or the salary cap going up. So they can definitely make a Dylan extension work, but it's a matter of, okay, do you think your young forwards will be ready to go at that point in time? Will Chemlevsky and Chikovic, will they be there? Will, guys like Gregor and Yurtaikin and Bergman, will they take another step?
Or do guys like Merkley and Ferraro make Dylan expendable?
That's also another way to look at it. Or third option, and don't get me wrong, I love him. I have one of his jerseys, but
When Brent Burns becomes
no,
exposed to Seattle.
but I mean, like, I don't think I would be too upset if there was a reality where Vlasic was traded.
I don't think that as well, but my whole thing is, where does he go? Who's going to take that deal?
Oh, somebody will take that deal. I'm sure of it.
You would hope, but it's, 32 years old. Now, granted, shut down defenseman. And it seems, but hold on, is it lefties or righties that seem to be more prevalent in the NHL? I thought it was lefties.
Prevalent, yeah. Lefties are definitely more like teams want right-handed defensemen.
Yeah, so that doesn't work in his favor because he's a lefty. But you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 more years. I mean, including this year. So after this year, 6 more years at $7 million. He's going to be 33, and he's got like a sick no move. And I think that if I remember correctly, Kurz was pointing out something about his clause that it's like airtight until like 2022.
Well, yeah, because since it's so like the no trade is obviously, like you can't trade the guy, but it doesn't protect you from, waivers or the expansion draft or anything like that. But no move.
Well, no, he's got a no move, which means he's automatically protected when Seattle comes in.
But yeah, what I'm saying is like the no move clause is way more ironclad than a no trade clause.
Yeah, and it drives me crazy that Doug Wilson just seems so quick to hand those out.
Yeah. Now, granted, there is information we don't know. For all we know, Cap Friendly says NMC. There's not an M for modified in front of it, but there could be some kind of provisions where maybe it goes away, or there's certain teams you can look at. I don't know if it's a full 100%. Actually, it doesn't look like it is, or it looks like it is a full, like, not even a list where he has teams he'll go to, like it's full ironclad. So,
well, I look at Cap Friendly now, and I sit there and and go, you know what? This is a lot better than it was like 5 or 6 years ago when I swear to God half the players on the team had some sort of a deal for a modified or full no move, whatever it was. So at least get it. Well, you know what it is? It seems like he's replaced term with, he's using term now. Remember, this is the guy who used to only give up 5-year deals. So
yeah,
either way,
I mean, if Vlasic all of a sudden turns into the best defenseman in the world again, this isn't even a conversation.
But is that going to happen? We shall see.
I am unsure.
Yeah, we have spent way too long. We should have ended this about 25 minutes ago. So let's go through the rest of this if we can. Quick burn. Ladies and gentlemen, hockey jerk specifically, why can't the Sharks beat Buffalo? 12, 26, and 4 all time. Since realignment, the Sharks are 6, 9, and 3, but this includes a stretch where the Sharks won 4 straight after going 2, 8, and 2. It's what is it just that case of like there always just seems to be that one team that and that's the whole thing. If it was like a Detroit or something, like you could at least understand it that what this is a team that has just been really successful for a great amount of time. Buffalo has just sucked for that. Like when was the last time they went to a playoff?
2012.
Okay then. So 7 seasons. And why can't the Sharks beat these guys?
I don't believe in fairy tales. I don't think there's anything to it other than just poor luck, poor timing.
Yeah, it's really weird. Well, we'll get to some more of that in a second. Speaking of Buffalo, former Sharks goaltender Arturs Irbe stopped by the Buffalo Sharks game last Saturday, and so that was fun, and he got a whole bunch of kudos and applause, and then of course if you look at his numbers, he was one of those worst goaltenders the Sharks ever had, but of course he will always be beloved for the series against Detroit and the following series against Toronto back in '94. That guy can eat for free in San Jose anywhere he wants, all because of the years 1994 and barely 95. So odd scheduling quirk, weird home and home. Hashtag what is a home and home versus Buffalo. So playing the Sabres last Saturday, playing them Tuesday. I guess a chance to try to figure out how to beat the goddamn Sabres. Going between now and the next time we'll talk to you, Buffalo, Montreal, and Toronto. Fun thing is Montreal, and you can ask Jerk this, he loves this stat, is they have not won in San Jose in this century. Fun stat, but over the last 13, 12-1. So you would hope that the Sharks have a good outing. Toronto, a little bit better, a little bit worse, depending on your outlook. The Sharks have lost the last 3 games against Toronto. Prior to that, went 14-1. And I think we're all, jazzed, and I'm sure Patrick Marleau is going to be really jacked up for this game and his, number retirement banner raising in Toronto. Just saying. So, I mean, what are you looking for on this trip?
Well, the home and home with Buffalo, again, I don't really attribute that to anything. I mean, from the schedule maker's perspective, right, you got to think about 31 different arenas, when they're available, when they're not. So maybe that's just the best way for it to work out, which I think is why the Sharks have had a lot of, 2 days off between games to start this season. So I don't really look into it beyond that. And I like that you brought up Montreal, because now myself, you, and Rocket Backhander, this is the 4th season we've been doing this podcast. And the fact that the Sharks play Montreal twice a year means that this is the 7th time I'm going to say this. Montreal cannot beat the Sharks. I'm telling you, write it down. Go back to every podcast the last 4 years that we've talked about Montreal, and I say it every time. Montreal can't beat the Sharks. You're going to see the same thing. And Toronto, well, John Tavares is out, so anything is possible.
That is true. Montreal to the Sharks is Buffalo to the Sharks. or the Sharks are to Montreal what Buffalo is to the Sharks. There you go.
That's how I see it.
Right. Okay, and finally, the Sharks fan Facebook page.
I don't know why you go on there.
Y'all need to calm the F down. I mean, it's just incessant bitching back and forth. There's everybody burning EK65, and I already explained why, contract and everything like that. Burning them in effigy, and then you've got the other people that will just defend anything blindly. I don't know if this has to do with the hyper-partisan politics right now, and that's just bleeding into sports, but we're just so at this thing where it's if you believe one way, everybody else is just wrong. And vice versa. There's no listening to anything else. And then the hyper partisan or the hyper bitching about whether a giveaway is free or not. Because evidently at the Sharks game versus Buffalo, they did their first jersey giveaway for the Los Tiburones, or Tiburones, sorry. They did their first jersey giveaway, and evidently there are people on the Sharks Facebook fan page say, hey, I have like 3 extras, sell it to you for $30. And then you've got the responses, why are you selling a giveaway? How did you end up with 3, or 4 or whatever? Did you take these? Just, again, I go back to what I was saying earlier about Twitter and everything with making assumptions. Stop with the assumptions. Just politely ask. I'm interested in knowing how you ended up with 3 if you only had 1 ticket. Did your friends or did somebody next to you at least give somebody the benefit of the goddamn doubt before you automatically call them a thief? Might help you out a little bit. But
or my favorite option, mind your own damn business.
Well,
that's how I got them.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So I'll throw it to you. Is a giveaway free or not?
No, because you're paying. You're obviously buying a ticket to go to the game, but also 100% of the time the ticket prices are inflated because of said giveaway. So it's like when a TV is half off and you think, oh, I saved $300, and it's like, that's nice, but you still spent $300. It's the exact same thing. Nothing is ever free.
Well, see, I look at it with these where when it comes to the giveaways where everybody through the door gets it, to me, I look at it as like, nah, it's kind of just a straight giveaway. Was this ticket pretty much going to be the same price either way? Yeah, pretty much. Wasn't going to change. Either way, I was getting a hockey game. I was going to get this seat for this price, whether they gave me a jersey or not. Now, when it comes to the promotional ones, where you have to buy a specific kind of ticket in order to get said item, absolutely, you can see that it's built into the price, because when you log on to Ticketmaster, when you want to buy a ticket in the same row without the promotional item, it's like $25 less. So you're clearly paying for the item, and that's the whole thing. Once you've paid for the item, do with it whatever you choose. If there's someone out there, and we've seen it from last season, whether it was the Timo alarm clock, the Kevin LeBanc piggy bank, or the Sharks head figurine, you will see these items go up for $100 a piece on eBay, and that's how we roll, people. That's the world we live in. Is if somebody goes out there and purchases the ticket, and that's the whole thing too. And this is what I think is probably one of the funniest things about this. And then we'll move on to the next one. But the people that you see, like in, I don't know, BFE Montana, or Nowheresville, Iowa, or wherever. Well, hold on. Now we're going to get a whole bunch of tweets saying, how dare you bemoan these 2 states? I'm not besmirching you, but I'm just saying, you live outside of the market. The whole fact of the matter is, and maybe this is brand new information for some of you, you can go onto the website, buy a ticket for these promotional items, the one where it's the promo package, the special package. I don't know if you're aware of this, but starting last season, the Sharks no longer hand these out to you at the game when you show them your special ticket. They send them to you. So rather than paying $100 on eBay for the Sharks head figurine or whatever it is, special promotional item, why not just go on Ticketmaster and buy the cheapest ticket possible, like $32 or whatever, buy the promotional one, and they'll ship you the item, and you'll save yourself some money. The more you know. So finally, and wow, we have gone so long. I thought it was just the both of us, and I was like, oh, okay, we'll do 40 minutes. Hour and a half later. There was new food options unveiled for a media access event last Sunday versus just before the Calgary game. So new food, same prices.
My advice, eat at home.
Yeah, well, and see, that's the whole thing is I understand, and I appreciate what the Sharks are trying to do. They're upping their food game, presenting some tastier options. But when you look on Reddit, you look on social media, you talk to fans. They say, hey, I think it's great that stuff tastes better than it did before, but I'm still not paying $18 for, a hamburger and fries. And I'm not going to do it. It's just based on principle. Like, I would rather eat a crappy hot dog for $2 because at least I know it's worth $2. This thing for $18, it's not worth that. It's worth 10. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go over the next 5 years when it comes to food and beverage at sporting events, because announced today, the San Francisco 49ers announced that season tickets going forward starting next season will include unlimited food and beverage. And the only thing that's going to be added is $20 per ticket. So if you're a season ticket holder and you paid $500 a ticket for each game or whatever, now that same ticket is going to be $520. But when you use it, unlimited, now of course we have to throw it out there. When I say unlimited food and drink, that doesn't include anything that has alcohol in it, and you should know that already. So, let's see what other teams follow, because evidently prior to this, there was a small area, like 1,500 tickets, close to the 50-yard line, club level, all that already got this perk. But if you think about it, like the Sharks rolled out a similar thing a couple seasons ago with the BMW Lounge, where seats along the glass, the first 3 rows that were $120 the year before, all of a sudden were $400. But now all of a sudden you also got, parking is included with like VIP parking, and you get earlier access, and you get access to the BMW Lounge, which comes with food and bev, although different from San Francisco, from the 49ers, alcoholic beverages are included, at least beer and wine is. So what do you think about this? I mean, is this the way we're all just going to go forward with? It's just haves and have-nots, and just, hey, we're going to make it easier. Because part of this, I also believe too, is that they want you to get inside the building earlier, so they're just going to tack in the food. Like, hey, dude, the food, you've already paid for the food and beverage, so come on in, have all you can eat.
Yeah, well, I'm inclined to say, from the 49ers perspective, I'm inclined to say that the reason why they're doing this is because they want people to actually come to the game.
Oh,
but
damn, we're talking about a team that's 6-0.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Your Santa Clara 49ers of the San Francisco Bay Area are 6-0. So I don't know. I mean,
see, I get you with that, but I also think it's a case of they want to lessen tailgating, and it's kind of that thing where if they use this as a way to say, you know what, we're gonna even make, like, there's already a small area in the parking lot evidently that's cordoned off specifically for tailgaters, and if you're not in that area, you're not allowed to tailgate. I could see them in a couple years saying, oh, by the way, no more tailgating.
I didn't consider that, but that's actually a pretty good point.
Right, and now we don't have to pay for the security either.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't necessarily look at it as like, oh, they're trying to do this, oh, they're trying to do that. I think
my point is, when do the Maple Leafs implement this pricing structure? Because everything impacts the Maple Leafs.
The way I look at it, I guess you could say, I look at it with like a very simple mind, because when I see something like this, I just think, oh, cool. The 49ers are obviously doing a huge service to their fans. And I think, not to start a whole nother topic, maybe we can talk about it on another podcast. But I just think, generally speaking, I think more teams need to do a better job at providing fan service, whether that's, food and drink prices, or, maybe the response time of building security, or, just the fan atmosphere in general. And I point at the stadium. I can't recall the name of the stadium, but the stadium where the Atlanta Falcons play.
Mercedes,
yeah. If you look at their food and drink, like Menu
Oh,
prices,
that's
it's
right.
stupidly low. And their, I think like their CEO of their stadium or whatever basically said, like, our fans bring us money, like we're gonna do something for them. Like it's literally called the fan friendly menu. And I
Yeah.
think more sports organizations across, not just football or hockey, but basketball, baseball, soccer, whoever, all need to follow that trend. Because if now fans are always going to show up, there's no denying that. But let's just say you have an NHL or an NFL game about to start and your building is empty, you're making zero money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and it's funny you say that because I remember not too long ago, a few years back, whatever it was, there was a concert tour, and it wasn't so the tickets. I just remember the ticket prices being like a little kind of like, really, you're gonna charge that much for that? And it was the case of, I think, like ticket prices were like $90 or something, and I'm going, really? Those should be closer to like 60, just based on other things that are happening. I'm like 90, 95, whatever it was. I'm like, I just remember thinking, that's a stretch. You need to drop that about a third of the price. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying in that they were selling, I think on average, they were selling about 80 to 82% capacity of the venues that they were playing. And it was this idea of like, well, wouldn't it be better to like put them at $60? Like you're gonna make it up in volume, like you're gonna sell more tickets, and you're gonna be able to probably sell out these places, and then you can use that as a promotional vehicle as well, saying that, hey, we're on a sold out tour, we're selling out all these places at
Hmm.
60, $65. But what that doesn't, and as you were saying, that all of a sudden that means there's an extra, I don't know, 3,000 fans now. Instead of, there's a place that's, seats 20,000. Before you were selling 17, now you're selling 20. Well, that's an extra 3,000, give or take, people that are going to potentially pay for parking, potentially buy a shirt, a program, a hot dog, a beer, any of those things. Like that's maybe, you take a haircut here to make more money over here. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see where this goes. It wouldn't surprise me if Vegas looks at this model that Levi's is doing and studies it real hard.
Do you mean the Vegas Golden Knights or the Vegas
Correct.
Raiders?
No, Vegas Golden Knights.
Because I have to disagree with you, only because, like I said earlier, people are gonna go no matter what. With Vegas, people will go no matter what.
Oh, I'm sorry. I pronounced Vegas incorrectly. I meant Ottawa.
Well, if they were smart, they would just demo that building, but that's another story.
Yeah. Okay, so wow, we went way too long, about twice as long as I thought we were going to go for. So, Hockey Jerk, where can the people find you on social media?
Well, so on social media, you can find me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. I've not been tweeting a lot lately. Got some things in my personal life going on, but I am back and it's great. And I'll just say the best is yet to come.
And just to get to the question that everybody is wondering, Vegas lost 6-2 since we went on the air. So anyway,
You love to see it.
so with that, I am AJ_Strong. You can find me at AJ_Strong. Isn't that cool? It's funny how that works out. On Twitter, on Instagram, of course, everything Tealtown USA at Tealtown USA on Twitter, on Instagram, tealtownusa.com is the website.